This is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by Dave Coldwell. Probably the first time we've spoken in 2023. I'm not going to say Happy New Year because we're in February now. Apparently that's not allowed.
No,
So how you doing? How's everything going?
I'm all right, thanks, mate. I'm all right. How's yourself?
I'm good, thank you. I guess one of the big projects, if you like, generally, but specifically for this year, is going to be Hopey Price. He's been, catching a lot of attention for someone so early in their career. Is 2023 the year where you push on towards perhaps titles towards the end of the year?
Yeah, what you're saying there, the end of the year, that's the main thing. It's still only 9 fights in, and everybody seems to be in a rush to push prospects when the 8, 9 fights. Just because somebody's a very, very good fighter and a very, very good talent and very, very good prospect doesn't mean that they should miss out on the building of the foundations. Because if you've got hopes for that fighter who in the embryonic stage of the career is showing, the right attributes and things that you need, the qualities that you need to progress to world level. It's only my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm wrong, but it's my opinion as such that you need to harness that and make sure the foundations are in place. Because if you cheat on the foundations, then when they do step up to that fringe world level, the real fights, the real experienced wily campaigners and champions, then things that they haven't experienced before, things that aren't there. Although everything else looks all nice and pretty, the foundations aren't there for it, and it can come tumbling down. And I don't want that with Hobie, because I believe he's a genuine talent. He is like something special. And also, what's very important is the mental side of things with him. He is very, very mature. He's unflappable, really, and he ticks all the right boxes. He's got the right attitude, everything. So with all these ingredients that are there, the only ingredient that he's missing on, and that he's going to be missing on for a while, is his experience. If you look at his record, he's fought good opponents for his kid at this stage of his career. So it's not like I'm saying, I'm not having him fight anybody, but there's a rush to push kids into big title showdowns and things like that so early on in the career, and I just I don't need that. Let everybody else do what they want to do. There's a lot of kids out there that have got titles that are 14, 15 fights in, not a problem. That's still quite early. If you think about how fighters used to be built and then promoted before, built and promoted before they moved on to the world stage. These days they're more rushed. And for me, I don't need to do that with Hopey, because I'm looking at longevity with him, and not just a quick flash in the pan. And in a few years' time, people are talking about, remember Hopey Price? He was a good talent. Oh yeah. Well, he got rushed, and because there's so many fighters like that you can think of right now, where if you think about fighters that have been rushed, and they're never quite the same, or they take a long time to come back. But I want to get the right fights this year, stepping up into 10 rounders, and like your faded names, or your people with good experience. It's 9 fights in. When he gets to 13-0, if he's still improving at the rate that I'm seeing, then the old plates are off, and then we'll look at the major sort of titles. Not world. I'm talking about your Europeans and your British and things like that. Then we'll look at them sort of titles. But yeah, I want him to be active, and I want him to get the right fights this year.
As someone who's kind of been through that apprenticeship, easy for me to say, stage of their careers, Jordan Gill, of course, it must be helpful to have him in the gym alongside Hopey. How is Jordan getting on? I heard him on George Groves' podcast. He sounds in pretty good spirits despite the defeat, and ready to come back at Super Feather.
Yeah, I mean, the thing. So you've gone from one of the scales to another. Jordan will tell you the first 16 fights of his career, he literally just fought journeyman. And I don't mean that. A fighter that comes to win that has got a bad record, I don't class as a journeyman.
Sure.
A fighter that just comes because it's a paycheck and he's thinking about the fight next week, and he'll come in, and if the kid's a little bit handy, he'll go, okay, I'll just tuck up, get through this week, get my pay. That for me is a journeyman. If you look at Jordan's record, Jordan for the first 16 fights fought nothing but journeyman.
Sure.
So that's one end of the scale to the other. That's too much. So after his 16 fights, then he started stepping up, and then obviously is at that sort of amount of fights, the progressions and the levels are a bit harder and quicker. He's gathered a lot of great experience over the last few years now, ups and downs, good and bad, and that's all part of him. And he's still only 28 years old, so it's easy to say, last year was a disaster. It was such a bad year. He finished off with the Kiko defeat, but let's remember the fact that he won a European title last year. So it wasn't such a bad year. It ended bad, but you can't forget the fact that he became European champion. So many good fighters don't become European champions. So many good fighters don't win Commonwealth, British, things like that. There's plenty of good fighters that haven't won titles. So he's achieved a lot. He's been Commonwealth and international and European champion at featherweight, but he's also been featherweight all the way through his career. And when he was an amateur, he was heavier than what he is now. He was saying to me, as a kid, he was heavier. And your body's always, we know, it adapts, it grows, it gets more dense, it gets harder to shift weight, and it's the right time for him to step up to super featherweight, without a doubt. So he'll campaign at super featherweight now. Tried his luck at world level with Kiko and got beat at world level with Kiko, and it is what it is. That's boxing. Not everybody can just have that trajectory where it just all goes plain sailing. So, he's had his time and his period of where, it was tough to take. It was tough to take for us all. It's one of the. I'm very, very close to Jordan. So it was literally like one of the worst nights of my boxing career. And because the journey that you've gone to get him to that point, and then the euphoria of the Guerfi win to then come crashing back down. So it did take a little bit of time for him to get over it emotionally and what have you, but he's very, very strong mentally. He's been through a lot in his career, and he's excited about the next stage. I'm not going to rush him back in. It's been, he's had to have an hand operation. We had to make sure that everything was right. So he'll probably be ready for April, I'd say. He won't be ready for March. I think April's a more realistic target for him to come back, his first fight at super featherweight, and then we move on from there.
He's obviously not far away from that world level. What areas do you feel you need to improve with him to get him that extra step?
Well, there are a few things. Listen, even in cases of where he's won fights, he's making mistakes that he doesn't make in the gym. And so it's the big night experience when all the eyes are on you. It's just being able to keep what he's supposed to be doing when things start going wrong a little bit. He trusted himself in the Guerfi fight when everything went wrong, but he didn't trust himself in the Kiko fight. And that's again because it was Kiko, you kind of like blowing your opponent up to be Superman. If you look in between one of the knockdowns, one of the two, I don't know if it's the first two knockdowns or something, and he's got back up and he's got back to making Kiko miss and just taking out the steam but he didn't persevere with it, and he didn't have the belief it could. So he made the mistakes that we were saying not to make, and all the stuff that he didn't do in training and everything like that. He went, because mentally, the pressure of Kiko and the fact that it went so wrong so early just got on top of him. And again, that's experience. He came back from the Tinoco loss a better fighter, and I expect him to come back from this loss a better fighter as well. Like I said, it's all right when things are going right, but when things are going wrong, that's when you kind of take notice of mistakes that you make or things that you need to get a grip off and change.
What's more challenging to kind of change and improve in a fighter, the mental aspects or the physical aspects?
The mental. For me, it's not, again, I'm not saying I'm right, but for me and in my experience, it's the mental. When Ryan Rhodes came to me, everybody thought he was finished. He'd had the Blundell loss. We're boxing on undercards at 6:30 at night. This was Ryan Rhodes, and people actually thought he'd retired. And then that was a long period of just rebuilding the confidence. You know, he'd never recovered from the Jason Matthews loss. That took him so long, and we said it realistically, it took him about 6 years to get over that. It was the night when he got beat by Lockett. Funnily enough, he gets beat by Lockett, but because everyone was expecting him to get bombed out, and then he went down early in the first round, I think it was, he gets caught with the top of the head and just sits on his knees. And then because he got through that in the manner that he did, I knew then. I said, I remember saying to Frank Warren at the time and to people around, watch him now. That will unlock that. That's where the demons that he got about, oh, he's chinny, he's fragile as this, he now realizes he's not. And then after that, rebuild. And then you look, he wins the British, he wins the European, and then he ends up going and fighting Canelo for a WBC world title, all in his 30s, in his early 30s, mid 30s. You know, Tony Bellew, he had the biggest success in his 30s. Jordan's 28, you know, and again, Bellew had been stopped off of Stevenson, and you know, so we're quick to write off fighters when they have a loss too, but some fighters do have losses or two on the record and do come back. George Groves the same. You know, look at George Groves. I mean, what was it? His third world title attempt, something like that, and then he finally becomes fourth. There you go, and he finally becomes world champion. You know, people thinking, oh, he's never going to do it. Oh, this, that. Perseverance, mentality, and learning while you're going through the shit. You've got to be able to pick out those bits, you know, that are in there to add to your game and to understand about yourself. And for me, the mental side is the most important thing.
And Lerrone Richards, I should ask as well. Are you still working with him at the moment? No. What's the story? Look, I've heard rumours, obviously, but I wanted to be sensitive in bringing it up. No, not rumours about what happened, but just rumours that you weren't working together anymore.
Oh, I put it on my Instagram.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I need to follow you then, don't I? Lesson learned.
That's where the rumour came. No, it's just one of those things, really. Just one of those things. I had a great time with Lerrone. Lovely kid. We get on. There's no fallout. He's sacrificed a lot for his sport. Being away, not seeing his kid for a full year, not having a fight. You know, it's been a very, very tough time, and so it's just a case of we're not working together anymore. I just wish him all the best. Listen, he is the most, honestly, genuinely. And I'm going back to my time working, you know, training at Brendan Ingles' gym for 10 years. I was around like your Nelsons, your Bomber Grahams, your Martin Smiths, your Slugger O'Tooles, all them sort of guys. I was in that era, you know, and fast forward all the way through. Lerrone Richards, generally, people will not, because you've not seen it in a fight, because he's inactive, he's not fighting much, or whatever. This kid is elite level boxing ability. Elite level boxing ability. And I genuinely believe if he gets a promoter that is willing to, you know, to back him, get him active, get him the fights, and they can deliver fights for him and keep him active. This kid's unbelievable. He's got unbelievable skills, you know, and people that have sparred with him will tell you how good he is. And he's now added over this past year. For me, it was frustrating because we didn't get an end product of it because the fight didn't happen. But the year of inactivity wasn't wasted because he's now got a more spiteful side to him, you know, and he's not just on the back foot, like, you know, keep punching to keep you off as such. He's a lot more spiteful now, and so he's more exciting. But he's good. He's elite level, honestly. And I just hope going forward that they can get him the right fights, and the world gets to see just how good Lerrone Richards is.
And you mentioned Johnny Nelson there briefly. He's got an MBE, another MBE in the camp. Pretty proud of him. Yeah,
I'm really proud of him. Listen, I looked up to Johnny. I still do. I looked up to Johnny, following him around that gym when I was a young kid at Brendan's gym. I remember how he was. Yeah, I've followed Johnny around that gym at Brendan Ingles for 10 years, and as a kid, he was. Obviously, Naz was the flagship, was the superstar, but I always looked up to Johnny because he was kind of like the one for the normal. But Naz is a one-off, and he's that superstar where the superstar prospects are kind of like, that's what I'm going to do. Whereas guys like me that had the ups and downs and didn't have the confidence saw how Johnny struggled with his demons, and he saw how Brendan managed to get that through. And again, that took years. And he's another one that didn't click until he was in his 30s. But once the mentality got worked out, then you saw him go on a roll. But yeah, I've followed him around in the gym, doing the dips, press ups, pull ups together, sparring, body sparring, doing all that sort of, and I've seen him just how good he was in that gym, but how good he was with us, just the kids that were coming through, and to this day how he is. So I'm over the moon for him. He's done a lot for the sport. It's mad that now I follow him around that gym, and I've kind of followed him to Sky and working with him at Sky as well sometimes. So yeah, it's great. It's good to see.
Stuff. Now, a couple of hot topics outside of your own stable, just before I let you go. We were expecting yesterday an announcement from the WBC about the Conor Benn investigation. That's now been delayed, it appears. Not really sure why. What do you make of how this whole situation is unfolding, and I suppose how long it's taking as well?
It's a mess. It's just a complete mess from start to where we are now. I can't say finished because we're not finished, but from start to present, it's just a mess. The whole listen, I don't believe any party's handled it great, but unless you're privy to what's going off, it's like when it first came out, I was like fuming. I couldn't believe. Are you still with me?
Yeah, I lost you for a few seconds there. You were saying, go on, carry on.
But I understand that if you've got a contract with people to fight, you can't just pull the show, because then you're open to getting sued. So I understand from that point of view. But then also the Board of Control, if they knew about it, if they could pull the show and remove sanction on it, not sanction it like 2-3 days before the show, then why did they do that when they knew there was failed drugs tests and they knew that it was scheduled to box? Because if I've got a fighter that's due to box, and he's boxing for a title and he doesn't do his check weighs and things like that, they won't sanction that. They want, if his medicals aren't in order, if he's not paid his license, they'll not let him box. But yeah, they left it all the way to the end, and I just think everybody could have handled it better. But then again, when it all goes off and you're in the middle of it, sometimes you ain't got the right answers. I mean, we're all human, but ultimately there was two failed drug tests. The moment that somebody's failed a drug test, then surely while you're investigating, you should be able to say, you're the sanctioning body, you should be able to say it. Because don't forget, Eubank agreed to take. If Eubank had turned around and said, "I'm not fighting him," then I don't. Again, I'm not clued up on law and things. But surely, if Eubank could have said, "I'm not fighting him," and didn't agree to fight, then that would have been the get out clause to cancel the show from a promoter's point of view. But while both parties are saying they've signed to fight and they're both saying they wanted to fight, then a promoter can't just pull an event. But the board sanctioned the event, so surely it ultimately it stops with the board. But if everybody apparently knew at the same time, so I don't understand how somebody didn't step up and say, no, it's not happening. And so it just got dragged on. And then this whole investigation, all this sort of stuff, dragging on. And listen, I know investigations and things like that take a long time. And, legal issues take a long time. I get that. Solicitors like to drag their heels, can get paid or whatever. And I'm hearing about 200-page documents and stuff like that. All takes time. I understand that. But it just feels as though it's... I don't know, it's took too long. Surely it's a priority. Surely it's there's enough money between them all to make sure that the lawyers get this done a little bit quicker. And it's resting with the WBC, who's coming out and saying that he's friends with family and he's blah blah and all nicey. So it kind of leads towards you thinking that everything's just going to be going as normal, but. I don't know. I don't know the facts. I don't know what's in this report. I don't know. I'm the same as you, same as everybody else. Where we've heard, is it eggs? Is it this? Is it contamination? I don't know. So kind of like, not that I don't want to. I don't want to give my time to it because I should, because it's my sport. But there's nothing I can do about it. You're asking me my opinion on it when I don't know the facts. I'm the same. I know the same sort of stuff as what I did when it all came out. But it's like they seem pretty convinced that he's not done anything wrong. Um, but is it going to be one of these excuses again where it's like, well, scientifically, yeah, that can happen, but probability, did it happen? I don't know, because I don't know what the excuses are yet, or the reasons, should I say, not excuses.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. We've temporarily, well, I hope it's temporarily lost your picture, although we can still hear you. I was going to say, if the WBC do quote unquote clear him, and even if the board do the same, how much does that matter if the public at large aren't educated about why this has happened?
But that's the key, is they need to be educated about it, and they need to understand what's gone off. Either way, obviously, because if he is proven innocent and he didn't do it, then we need to know how that happened. We need to understand that. And I think if people understand it, then it's like, oh, okay, fair enough. But if they don't, then they're not gonna believe it. Um, but again, it's all. I'm trying to pull out things out of the sky that I don't understand. I don't know what the reasons are. I don't understand enough about it. So it's very difficult to say.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you about before you go, and I'm sure you'll be delighted to talk about this, but it's Jake Paul, Tommy Fury was finally confirmed last week. Not the usual big fight we ask you to preview, but it is attracting a lot of attention. A genuine
Yeah.
grudge match, it seems. What do you make of it?
Um, this is what I'm saying about this YouTube stuff. It's entertainment. I don't see it as real boxing, proper boxing. I think there's a place for it. I think the whole KSI, the Jake Paul stuff. I've got to rate them for what they've done. And what you got to think of is these guys could take up tennis, and they would draw the same attention, and they would draw the views and the attraction to that sport. But they're in our sport, so go with it and try, and if you get 1% of their following that then actually start getting an interest in boxing, that's a plus. I don't like it when they're comparing themselves to the top level professional fighters that are out there. I think stay in your lane, understand what you are. You're entertainers. They are entertainers. Where people say, "Oh, you shouldn't watch it. You shouldn't do that." Listen, if your mate turns around to you and says, "I'm boxing in a white collar fight. I want to give it a go. It's 50 quid a ticket. We come and give us a watch." You go and watch your mate do a white collar fight at Hilton Hotel or whatever. Jake Paul, all these guys, they're kind of doing the same thing, but because they've got such a big following, they're packing out arenas and selling pay-per-views because they're in demand and because people want to watch them. So I can have it. The fact that it's Tommy Fury against Jake Paul, I think it's a fun fight because Tommy Fury is a professional fighter, but he's never fought anybody yet. He's only fought your usuals that you would expect a novice pro to be going out there and chinning if they're a big puncher and winning on points if they're not. And so he's fighting at that level where it's the embryonic stages of his career. Fair enough. Jake Paul's actually seems as though he's developing really well. Seems like he's putting all his time into it and he's taking it seriously. But he's never fought a professional fighter yet, professional boxer yet. So it's kind of like this is his first boxer, and in Tommy, he's fighting the first person that's going to come to try and win. So it's an even sort of match, that's the way I see it. I mean, I can't tell you that I've watched either of them box to the extent where I can tell you what they're good at and what they're not. But I'm interested to see who comes out on top, and I think it'll be good entertainment. I think it'll get people talking like it has done. I just open on any other face-offs in rings that they keep the clothes on. I was a bit befuddled by that one.
Do you were you surprised to find out, or maybe I'm telling you for the first time, that Jake Paul's the favourite with the bookies?
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know. It's like I said, for me, it's pretty much an even sort of thing. You would like to think that the kid that's grown up around boxing all his life and is on paper the professional boxer properly, you would think that maybe he should have too much for the one that's not fought a professional fighter yet. But I don't know. I think Jake Paul looks the better. I actually think from the clips that I've seen, I think he looks the better boxer. But I don't know. The odds and stuff like that, I don't care. I'm not really asked who wins it, to be honest. I just hope it's a good. I just hope it's a bit of fun, and they both get what they want out of it, and it's entertaining for everybody that's watching it. I just hope it's a good crack.
Great stuff. Well, Dave, unfortunately, as I said, we've lost picture with you, but we've still got the audio, so I'm glad we got the insight.
Cheers, mate. Nice one.